Sometimes in life, you just need to talk about a record that you just can't get enough of. And I have a fun one for you guys today with Mooneater by Magnolia Park. Kept these guys on my radar for quite some time now. They are a Florida pop punk and post-hardcore band, but it's kind of hard to box them in because they blend a lot of influences from like the 2000s emo scene as well as electronics and punk. It's very Epitaph Records, Rise Records core, but played with a bit more influences and not as homogenous, but still so vintage and familiar. And Magnolia Park have been one of the more tasteful bands in the late 2010s to sort of blow up and revitalize this style and bear the torch for those old sounds. And overall, I'm just kind of a fan of their messaging. I like the things that they raise awareness for and shine a light on. And I have seen a lot of people talk about how they enjoy the fact that Magnolia Park brings representation into the niche that you don't always see, and I think that can't be a bad thing. But onto the music. This is a 5-track EP. I know this thing isn't going to be for everyone, but it's absolutely for me, and I have been adoring this thing. It is every part pop punk and post-hardcore of the 2000s, emo inspired, but with a lot of energy, with a lot of great production behind it, and some very infectious, catchy choruses. I listened to a lot of material through submission emails as well as just checking out new material, some very heavy stuff, and I just keep coming back to this thing, which in comparison is probably one of the more digestible things I've talked about recently. Can't lie and say that tracks like Homicide and Breathing don't bring me back to my youth amazingly. I can't emphasize enough how sticky these choruses are, how catchy the riff writing is, and just how clean the production is. But it's not really sanitized. It still feels like it has a punch to it and that it has a lot of energy to it, which is only amplified by the amazing vocal performances by Joshua Roberts all over this thing. I don't think he has a single track here that I'm not a fan of vocally. He has the perfect mixture of grit and dynamics without going out of his range or pushing himself too hard, but he has that great grit and distortion when he needs to, but also those more somber and understated verses. He really catapult, and he has a solid range in terms of these soaring post-hardcore choruses, but also these more emotionally provoking verses that sort of lead you into these crescendos. Track listing is also full to the brim with features on almost every single song except for Homicide, the very first track. Nothing Nowhere and Honey Revenge pretty much carry their tracks, but they don't really outshine Joshua or the band themselves. They more so feel like accompaniments. Smart additions that work well, and I won't say that it feels like the songs are necessarily written around them or for them, but it certainly fits the styles of projects like Honey Revenge and Nothing Nowhere. I love the inclusion of electronics on tracks like Do or Die and the last track Heartstopper, which is one of the most infecting choruses and infecting songs I've heard this entire year. I don't know if it's just a me thing, but so many of these tracks also read like they take influence from like video game music. I'm really new to the discography of Magnolia Park, and I understand they do other material with sort of this series name, so I don't know if that's something that they have said or gone on the record saying that they take influence from. With that being said, I think Do or Die and Homicide are the weakest tracks on the track listing. I think Homicide compared to Breathing and especially Unholy Heart and Heartstopper, it is a little one note and one-dimensional in the way it comes across and reads like it takes a lot of the most bare bones influences from pop punk and post-hardcore. It's still a very well produced track, whereas Do or Die kind of just feels like a Corpse song and reads to me like a lot of basic trap metal that you hear nowadays, or at least trap metal infused with emo music and metalcore music. I wouldn't go so far as to say it sounds gimmicky, but the verses with the really low, grumbly Corpse type of rapping, or I guess singing, as well as the thumping percussive beat, it is extremely Corpse Husband inspired, or at least taking from that tradition, which is saying something because not even Corpse is original in his employment of those things. I much prefer the more soaring sections of Do or Die, but I will say it does get a little cumbersome to listen to some of those portions. That being said, there are no tracks here that are unplayable, unlistenable, and I think because this track listing is in and out before it can really become too gratuitous to listen to, none of them really stick out like a sore thumb as being like terrible or defining the whole album or staining the whole album. Nothing really taints anything, and the only reason Homicide and Do or Die are weaker in my opinion is because the other 3 tracks on this EP are insanely strong. Unholy Heart being a rager that is sickly sweet to the ears, a chorus that fits Honey Revenge's style completely, like a glove. Like I said, the twinkly electronic isms of Heartstopper, as well as the inclusion of Nothing Nowhere, who always adds that sort of Midwest emo tinge to the material that he finds himself on. Happy to see him doing more crossovers and collaborations. They work perfectly as well. Overall, this is just a very catchy record that I have been enjoying. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I could see some people calling it basic, bare bones, or just kind of scant in the way it's derivative, and I'm not going to say that this is the most original album you're going to hear, but it's just fun, and it's well produced, and it's well performed, and that's why I enjoy it so much. For that reason, I'm going to be giving this EP a 7 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Magnolia Park EP, Mooneater? If you have, let me know down in the comment section below what you thought about it. I can't wait to discuss this record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.